Hello everyone, I'm Ross Dominy and welcome to the world of Shadowgraph. Here on this channel we capture the unseen realities that are shaping our political landscape. We want to offer ways for you to think, act and connect with the world, and we are doing this through kind of behind the scenes videos on how you might be able to use storytelling to feel less helpless amongst the chaos that is all around us. In today's episode, we are going to delve into the aesthetics of protest, and we're going to take you back in time to a revolutionary moment that swept Hong Kong in 2019, when there were massive anti-government protests at the attempt by mainland China to have control over the autonomous territories of Hong Kong. There was this unbelievable protest movement that sprung up on the streets that was aesthetically so satisfying for filmmakers.
都係通過 walkie 嚟溝通嘅。
People were wearing high-tech, modern protest gear that looked very sci-fi-esque in this kind of modern image of what a uprising would look like in a city. Now, the process that I was going through is I get kind of obsessed sometimes seeing a news story or a dramatic moment across the world unfolding. I can obsessively be checking on my computer, following all the updates of what's happening, and I want to find a way to give myself more of a full meaning and understanding of that event. So the one side is the theoretical, the side that you read about, the analysis from different writers online, but the other side, to take this into a whole other dimension, is to go and experience those aesthetics of protest with your camera. Now, I strongly believe that a camera is a passport that can take you into unseen worlds, and that is what I am so passionate to teach about on this channel. By having a camera, it is honestly a passport into the craziest worlds, and it gives you the excuse to meet people, to get involved with political movements that might be on opposing sides to what you believe in, but to expand your vision and way that you see the world. It's very easy when reading things online to get stuck into echo chambers of belief systems and kind of very one-dimensional realities of what's happening. By taking the step to go somewhere and to experience it firsthand, you do add a whole range of feelings to the experience. Now, I'm not saying by any means that by going there, it gives you a full understanding of what's happening. In many ways, from my experience, when you go to somewhere, it actually ends up kind of leaving you with more questions, and you really feel quite humbled in being reminded that you know nothing about the world. So what does it mean to go from being a passive online observer of global news events to turning into a storyteller where you will be on the streets to feel the full meaning and depth of what is unfolding around the world? Okay, so then comes the time of arriving and disorientation. This was the case for me anyway, flying to Hong Kong. It was a super short trip, it was like 5 days, so massive flight, not very long there. You kind of land and feel that you're like turned upside down into this whole new world. It was quite strong to feel all of the aesthetics coming out of the airport. There was at that time, like I think a couple of weeks before, protesters had taken over the airport. So I was like walking through the airport and seeing all of these real scenes that I was watching on Twitter. Strategically, I planned to stay at a hotel in Mongkok, and this was right opposite a police station. Now, why I chose to stay here was that from studying the events online before I flew to Hong Kong, it was clear that this particular police station was basically attacked every night by pro-democracy protesters, or if they weren't attacking it, they would gather outside and the police would attack them. But the main thing from a filming point of view was that this was a hotspot. Being there guaranteed an abundance of good footage and kind of a warm-up to the bigger protest which was happening on the 1st of October. Now, from a logistical point of view with filming as well, by people being outside this police station and taking part in doing the same actions over and over again, this window of repetition is a really good way for you as a filmmaker to warm up and kind of understand the code of the street. When you're filming protest movements abroad and kind of outside of your comfort zone or understanding, different groups have different attitudes towards media, and you don't really know until you're filming there. You could get like a word of mouth thing beforehand. If you film with anarchists in Greece, there's quite often that they smash your camera up and give you a hard time. But in Hong Kong, they were super media friendly.
We learned the black bloc techniques through the internet.
People were still dressed all in kind of black clothing. They were called, these particular type of protesters were the frontliners. So they would hold the front line of the protest and they would take kind of radical direct actions against government structures, police. They would use umbrellas to protect themselves and to kind of move forward. So I was on the streets, I was venturing out and seeing the crowds gather to be part of this massive demonstration. It was really good to walk the streets kind of as a recce as the tension was building up. Not to use too much energy, remember, to save yourself, but to do some kind of walk to get an understanding of the geography of streets and locations, and also to most importantly see where the cops are. You want to kind of map out in your head where there might be hotspots. As the crowds continued to grow, we chose, myself and my two fixers that I was working with, that this was a good time to get interviews because people were waiting to start the demonstration, and from an audio sound point of view, this is going to be good audio. You're not going to have chaotic sounds of people chanting in the background. You can still have the visuals of all the crowds on the street, but you can focus on a one-to-one interview with someone, and because the streets are kind of quiet in the background, you would get good sound of the person that you're interviewing. You want to save your energy. You know later it's going to be chaotic, there's going to be people running around, there's going to be potentially riots happening. So you want to kind of put the energy in on the first part of the day to capture the interviews of people on the street. Because from my experience, you build a film like this kind of protest film, not only with the footage of clashes and the chaos, but also from the dialogue and interviews that people are giving you.
警黑合作，濫暴濫權。
You want to kind of lay like these interviews into your edit as points that take you through the story. And I always find it's quite hard to get started, but when you just like get one interview in the can, then you move on, get another one, then the next one's better, and then you start building confidence to go and talk to more people. You start to understand more of a dimension of what's happening all around you by the conversations and perspectives of others.
即係呢個太過分啦，但係已經係盡咗㗎啦，在我角度度。
Maybe like 5,000 to 7,000 of them that were on the front of the demo, and they were ready to go with like body armor, gas masks, all in black. Some of them had baseball bats, lots of them had Molotov cocktails. Behind them was the huge demonstration, was easily up to 1 million people, maybe more. And the best way to be amongst this chaos with your camera is just to observe. And once you've worked out through this kind of repetition of filming, your warm-up filming, like we talked about before, focusing on this police station to warm up and to gauge the hostility that people have towards your camera. In the case of Hong Kong, it wasn't very much. So you know already that you're going to be in for some awesome footage. People are going to get up to mischief on the streets, and they're not going to give you problems and beef for filming it. Of course, you have to be responsible the way that you film things and not get people into trouble. That's a whole other thing that we could talk about in another video. But yeah, enjoy the chaos. Use your camera in an observational way to capture cinematic drama that's unfolding in front of you. You don't always have to use your camera to film like a news camera person. You can use the lens and the depth of field to make this almost look like a fictional film, where you have blurry backgrounds and focused detail on like a Molotov cocktail, for example. If you're feeling confident and you can step back and relax with all the drama happening around you and take your time to zoom into key moments, you can give yourself a really nice palette of footage to edit with that make this whole experience more than just a news film and make it into something quite cinematic. The day was getting towards the end and my energy tank was quite low. I couldn't realize this at the time because my whole body was pumped and fueled off adrenaline. I remember with the heat in Hong Kong as well, there was one stage when we were running covered in tear gas and sweat, and I felt so like, wow, my body is using a lot of energy right now and it's trying to process this heat. I was breathing rapidly because of the chemicals and the gas, and breathing through my gas mask, which was limiting my breathing as well. And you really just have to realize what's happening to you and be like, okay, I don't want to be like hyperventilating now or not getting enough breath. But I kind of have this understanding now of listening to my gut feeling. And when something is telling you from the inside that it's time to go, you should trust this instinct and go with it. Because in that moment, late in the day, you're really tired. The cops are also really pissed off. They've been chasing and clashing with protesters all day. So I said to the fixers, let's just call it a night and go back. We parted our ways. I went into the hotel, and then as soon as I got into my room, I could just hear outside my window the sound of screaming and clashes. And literally like 2 minutes after we left, the riot police had stormed in, beat people up on the streets. They were beating journalists. I could see them outside the window. They blocked off the streets. There was nowhere to run. People got arrested. People got taken into police vans. And yeah, it was just definitely the right time to leave beforehand. So yeah, that's a little behind the scenes story of how a camera can add so much more meaning to the textures and aesthetics of things that you read about online. So you have the theory of what you're passionate about. Maybe you're an empathetic and sensitive person to the struggles that are happening around the world. You read about them, but then you use your camera as a way to go there and experience what you're reading about. This is like a wholesome way to dissect and understand knowledge. And I really strongly believe that this is something that anyone can do if they cross those boundaries and go on the journey of all of the amazing things that a camera can do for you. Stay tuned for the next Shadowgraph episode and see you next time.